And then we are now live,
Oh,
and
I'm
I
gonna
have
have
to
to
be here to
admit.
catch the button because it's going to start talking, even though I'm already live and I would like to be doing my thing, but I have to wait for the YouTube to kick in and tell me it's
Oh,
live so that I can mute it. And then we're now live. See?
oh, there it is.
And it doesn't matter what you do, it does it every time. Oh, goodness. All right. Well, here we are. We are here for the Aligned Ambition Women's Entrepreneurial Wisdom Show. And I know I say this every time, but I either have to record it or change the name because it's killing me. It's killing me. I have to be able to say it. And I've lost my notes. They disappeared somewhere. They're here. One moment while I figure out what I'm doing. Okay, let's just mulligan. We're going to do a
Yeah,
do-over.
rewind.
All right, so welcome to the Aligned Ambition Show, where we share women's entrepreneurial wisdom. Are you a woman starting to or growing your online heart-centered business? Are you wanting to do things differently? Are you wanting to show up like a crazy person like I do? Because, do you feel icky about using manipulative marketing tactics and are ready to align your business with your ethics, values, and life goals? Then stick around for this conversation. Today I have with me Becky Scheliga of Awkward Alchemy. I love that name. Honestly, her emails are the best too. This is just the
Yeah.
beginning of her bio, and I have to share because it's just like so brilliant. Becky is a self relationship and empowerment coach who helps creative, witchy, misfit, weirdo women discover and connect with their inner magic so they can ditch the should, supposed to bullshit they've been told to follow and create a life that feels more aligned, fulfilling, and authentic to who they actually are. And as it goes, like, honestly, I love the stuff that you write. I
Thank
really
you.
do. Welcome, Becky.
Thank you.
Before I ask you a question, I just want to like rewind again because I say things sometimes things pop out of my mouth and then I'm like, oh, that was not really what I wanted to say. So the word crazy in our vocabulary, right? As someone who has struggled with mental health issues my whole life, I'm not particularly a fan of the word crazy,
Mhm.
because it gets used as a weapon
Yeah.
and as a derogatory term. But I do often catch myself saying it because it's like one of those things that is so ingrained, been taught to us, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
and so I did notice it as soon as I said it, and I just wanted to apologize to anyone who's watching because I know that it can be a triggering word, and I didn't mean it in the mental health way, at more as in the chaos of my mind way. That's what
Yeah.
I meant, and I should choose better words. Anyways, back to the show. And Becky, welcome. But this actually fits into what we're going to talk about. Before we do that, tell us a little bit about yourself, Becky.
Yeah, so on top of everything you also said, and this is kind of like my next part of my bio that I always include is like I'm a mental illness warrior and a neurodivergent unicorn, because I have lived with that like my whole life. I was late diagnosed with neurodivergency, so that's been a whole learning curve that I've had to deal with. But was diagnosed with mental health issues like years and years and years ago. So I'm more familiar with like dealing with that. Like the neurodivergent stuff is new for me. But, I really set down this path because like having a relationship with myself, like, for the longest time, I didn't even like I thought I didn't have any relationship with myself, but we all do. We just maybe aren't aware of it, and the one we do have with ourselves is usually pretty shitty. So like really doing that work was some of the most empowering and like uplifting work I ever did, and it's what has helped me with my mental illnesses, and also in like like finding out I'm neurodivergent, because you know I'm much more like in tune with what's going on inside of me and what's happening, and which is not something that I could have said before doing all of this work. It is a process, but like once you really like once and this is a line that you used the other day when we were talking, but it's like once you know what you're looking for and you start looking for it, it's like you can't unsee it, and it's just everywhere. And so this has
Mhm.
just been the most like impactful work for me. So I was like, this is my mission. This is what I'm like here to do.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it is funny because once it's in your awareness, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. I
Yeah, you
honestly
can't
think,
escape
and
it.
I've said this before here, is that a lot of women entrepreneurs are on the like they're neurodivergent in some way because we just don't fit in and we can't make it work. And yeah, absolutely. The awareness of neurodivergency, I know for my own self because I was diagnosed with autism at 50 and ADHD at 55, that I am starting to recognize that all these struggles of mental health, what I had been diagnosed with in my earlier years, may not have been mental health issues. It may have been my neurodiversity. When I had a depression, was I just not coping with all the stimuli that was coming at me and trying to fit
Mhm.
into a world I didn't fit into and all the masking that I had to do. And I think,
Yeah,
like you and I have had these conversations as well. Eh, Do you think that's a part of your uncovering and where you're at now?
absolutely. I mean, there's such a a comorbidity, like a intertwine, like all tangled together. And I think like that can be that's kind of some of the trick of it is like kind of untangling it all. It's like it's it's rewarding, but it can be like frustrating in the process. I mean, if you've ever like taken out the Christmas lights and it's just one big giant tangled ball of lights and you don't know where one starts and where one ends, like that's kind of how it feels sometimes, like, untangling all of it. But I definitely see like interconnections, like now that I know that I'm neurodivergent, like a lot of things make sense that didn't make sense before. And it's like a lot of, pieces to the puzzle that like, I was missing are like suddenly appeared, and I was like, oh, like that makes sense. And actually, like one thing that I've just like sort of recently realized too is because of like all of the things that like I've had to deal with, like now I find as an adult, like I push myself to the limit without even realizing it a lot of the times. Like I just realized, like maybe like yesterday or the day before, I don't even remember which day it was, but it was like by the time I realized that things are like bad, or like getting, I think I say that they're getting bad, but by the time I realize that, they're already like so bad. But it's because I've just inherently been taught to like, you're too much, like you're too this, you're too that, like you have to just take it. I'm listening to an audiobook, Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. And goddamn, like I mean, it's like that's a whole other conversation, not even like outside of neurodivergency, but like even that, like I look at it and I'm like, I'm seeing stuff now that was so painfully, that should have been so painfully obvious, that like things were not okay or things were not right. But it's like, why didn't anybody notice this? Like, why didn't anybody see this? Like, why wasn't anybody paying attention? You know what I mean? So, but because of that now, too, like I said, I feel like I'm realizing that I take so much on. Like, I'm definitely an internalizer and I take so much on. Like, it's my responsibility and I have to, carry all of the burden. So by the time like it's gotten bad, like it's really bad.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, it's absolutely true. And then you and I were having this conversation the other day about as a business owner, so like you're in corporate or whatever job out in the world working for someone else, and you realize this isn't working. You just like you hit a wall constantly. For me, it was, bouts of depression. It was being on sick leave. It was getting ill, physically ill. Um, so many things, time and time again. And and then it's just like I can't do this anymore. Like I just can't do this anymore. But then you're so conditioned with how the world works that you're trying to create that in your own space and it's still not working. And so
Yeah.
the change takes such a long time. And in the meantime, you're like, I need to have an income and I need to, you know, be able to write all the emails and I need to be able to do all the things. Can you talk to what that is like for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of amazing because, being in corporate America, like waking up every single day with like this crippling anxiety, like, there would be a lot of times where it would just be like crying when I had a commute. I'd be like crying the entire way, like on my commute into work, and then crying the entire way home. And then when I worked from home, it'd be like my lunch break would just be crying. Like, but it took me like so long to eventually, like, this is not normal. This is not okay. Like, this is not how a person should be living. But, as you said, like when I was really trying to start my own business and go into this, like, and pivot, I was finding that I'm doing the same things and I'm just like, maybe I'm not commuting, but I'm still like waking up and like wanting to cry because everything feels hard. And it wasn't until like I finally realized, like, hey, it's because you're trying to do things in a way in which corporate does them, or like, you know what I mean? Like you're trying to force yourself into this box that it's the very reason why you wanted to get away from it. So, I've been playing around more with like different ideas of, what actually works for me. So one of like my newest ideas is like I've realized that like I feel much more creative and much more like flowy, like in flow at night. Like, so I'm starting to like shift my working hours to be like later at night. And that was like such a perspective shift for me because like my body wanted to resist that so much because it was like, no, like you work from 9 to 5. Like, this is when you should be sleeping. This is when you should be winding down. And it's just like, well, that's a perfect example of like why we create our businesses in the first place. I mean, one of the reasons for most of us is the freedom to do things the way we want to do them and the way that actually like works for us rather than being forced to do it because so and so at the top said so. Like now you're at the top, so you get to say so. But that can be like, the challenge for me, I think, was like learning to trust myself and like trust that that's okay. Like that I know what's best for me and that's okay.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's such an important part is that we have to learn that afterwards, right? Because we've been told, like literally our whole lives, especially as women, we have been told, like our parents tell us what to do, our teachers tell us what to do, our boss tells us what to do, and it's very linear. It's very, sit in a row and do this thing that everybody else is doing, and you do it at this time, and you take your lunch at this time, and you take your break. And and for a lot of us, uh, anyone who's, I think, able to think outside the box, but for a lot of us, it's excruciatingly painful, but we try so hard, like literally almost killed me, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I think a lot of people, and it has killed people. And so, but then you carry on that um conditioning, and so then you have to learn who you are. Who are
Yeah.
you? And you go through all these struggles and the belief that you're not good enough and you can't do it because, oh, I'm supposed to do it this way and I'm not doing it this way. Okay, but I don't want to do it that way. And there's all of these internal um I want fight's not the right word, internal conflicts
Yeah.
happening that just make you be like, what am I doing? I can't work for somebody else. I can't work for myself. I'm no good. And and it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like honestly, the whole structure of like society and in general, but like the structure of everything, like you were saying, like parents, teachers, bosses, like I mean, the whole structure is really designed for us to, from the very beginning, not trust ourselves and not trust that we know like what to do and whatever. Like obviously, like as parents, you know, we still have to focus on keeping our kids safe and like, not putting them in dangerous situations. But at the same time, like I feel like the stuff that we should be learning in schools is more of this internal stuff, like not saying that, math isn't important or like how to spell and, speak and write and read and whatever. Like those are important skills, but I feel like at some point in school, like there should be more like focus on, this internal work as well. or some sort of program or whatever. Like that's kind of like a vision that I've had um, over and over again. It's like, why aren't people being taught this stuff? Like, why aren't people like, why isn't this being talked about? Why isn't this being focused on? And, you know, I feel like, they'll be like, oh, well, parents are supposed to be teaching that. Yeah, but like if parents weren't taught it, then how are they supposed to teach it? Like at some point, we have to just say, okay, this isn't working and we have to do things differently, kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, it is all kind of like a mind fuck, really, like, because that trust is so key, but yet we're not really taught to do it or how to do it or what that even looks like. In fact, everything is quite the opposite. Like we're kind of taught how to not trust ourselves, like that we have to seek some sort of external validation to know that we're going in the right, quote unquote, right direction.
Hmm. Absolutely. Because you're absolutely right. We have not been taught. And I can tell you why. It's because they don't want people thinking for themselves.
Of
Quite
course,
honestly, they don't want people
yeah.
thinking for themselves. It makes it difficult if people are thinking for themselves. And so they like the little robots that are all trying, put them in a box, put them on a conveyor belt, and off we go. And but to learn to trust yourself, right? And is really difficult. But we are born with it, and
Mhm.
then we are conditioned out of it. And so relearning it is a skill. And that's one of the reasons that I bring it into the mastermind. Like we do business, but we do a lot of the healing work that needs to be done to be
Yeah,
allow us to do business, right? Because
yeah,
as women, we have so many conditions that don't fit, right?
yeah,
Be a certain way, show up a certain way, look a certain way, act a certain way, don't be too loud, you don't know anything about money. All of those things that go with business go against what we're taught as women in society. And it's a
yeah.
lot.
And it's like, and that's really like that's kind of like where the rub is, right? Because like, you know, you yes, business stuff is important, like, knowing how to like market, how to like actually speak to your audience and things like that. Like, I mean, those things are inherent to business. You need to know how to do that. But like, I feel like, that's kind of, it's, if it was an iceberg, if business was an iceberg, like all the technical businessy stuff is like the tip of the iceberg. But what really like is the main focus of building a business is all the stuff underneath, like all the internal stuff, all the stuff that's going to come up and going to tell you why you can't do this or why this is a bad idea. Like all of that mindset stuff, all of those feelings, all of those emotions, all of that like unhealed trauma, whatever, like all of these things are going to start coming up and surfacing. And like you're like, oh, okay, I know all the marketing things, but I don't know how to deal with any of this stuff. Like, you know what I mean? And that's like so many business courses. I feel like that's kind of what we focus on. We focus on the tip, the jargon, this is, kind of the businessy things you need to do. But there's way more to it than just like knowing that stuff.
Yeah, and when I started Creative You Business, because I had Creative You Healing beforehand, and I still do, and I started business because so many women were asking me the questions about how to do this and how to do that. And I started with those technical things, but very quickly learned that's just a small piece of it. So yes, we do those things, but it's what we would consider mindset, but our belief systems. Our belief systems are all the things we've been taught, right? And beliefs are, well, they're just that, they're beliefs. And we make them true and then we govern ourselves by those beliefs. And yet we weren't born with those belief systems. We've acquired them along the way, and the majority of them are bullshit, but we are constantly, it's reinforced to us that they're true. So
Mhm.
unpacking those along with all the other sort of trauma and ancestral and generational familial wounds that we get along the way. And then maybe add on some neurodiversity, which I can consider a superpower as opposed to
Yes.
anything wrong with me, but it doesn't fit into this world, right? It's
Mhm.
otherworldly. And so being able to unpack all of that to be able to grow your business in a very aligned way for you. So you're not having to work hard. You're not having to show up 9 to 5. You're not having to do all the things you've been taught to do. You get to make the decisions. You get to decide how it works for you. What's
Yeah.
one thing that you've noticed or is the that you've been able to unpack for yourself and really has helped you move forward?
Well, I think the biggest thing that's like helped me honestly is like specifically like inner child and also inner like teen. And I mean, it's kind of, I guess you could consider that like child or whatever, but like those are like really two different for me because like, the way or the things that I dealt with in like my childhood as opposed to like the way I was feeling and the things that I dealt with like as a teenager, two vastly different like things. So I kind of separate them, but that has honestly like helped me the most, I think, in like learning about myself and also like moving forward in a lot of the work that I do because I personally am someone who had to grow up really fast. I don't really feel like I got a full on like childhood, and I know I'm not alone in that. And I think especially as girls and females, like that's just kind of expected of you. But like as an adult, then I was like again carrying that same kind of like that I have to be responsible for everybody, I have to be accountable for everybody, I have to do everything for everyone all the time, I have to always be a giver, I have to always be the good girl, I have to always do that, whatever. um so one of the things that has been like the most impactful is just having fun, like learning to make things fun, even if they're not traditionally something that would be fun. Because like, I was like, why are things so much harder like in adulthood? Like I feel like I could do this so much more easily as a child, like, and not think about like what everybody's going to say or what everybody's going to think about. But I was realizing that like because I'm making everything harder than it has to be, and I'm still like falling into those patterns of like this is what I've been told to do or how I've been told to act. And it's like, well, now I'm the adult and I get to reparent the child and I get to say, absolutely we can break and have a dance party right now. Like that's totally something we can do, or whatever. Like I get to give myself that permission. So really like connecting with my inner child and like my inner teen has been like the most impactful. And then, like really just learning to have fun, learning to make things, life is heavy enough, so I don't have to make it heavier by, you know, I don't know, like not being true to myself and not like, I think giving in, but it's not really giving in. It's just, it's just allowing myself to be who I am and be playful. And you know what I mean? Just because we're adults doesn't mean we have to stop being playful or having fun. In fact, quite the opposite. Like we need it even more because because we have the responsibilities and we have to figure things out and whatever.
Yeah, who decided like adulthood wasn't fun? Like at some point a switch like I mean for me it was a very early switch. I mean
Yeah.
I left home at 14, first time at 11, but officially at 14. And so, life wasn't fun. Life was freaking hard.
Yeah.
And so, when you're living on the streets and you're trying to support yourself and still go to school, that didn't work out so well, but that's a whole other thing. And I finished eventually, even went on. But, all of those things and we just, everything gets shut down as an adult because of response. But it's because we're supposed to fit into a certain mold. We're supposed to fit into that box that makes us easier to control. And so
Mhm.
everybody has to do it this way, and everybody must do this. And yeah, why can't we have fun? Why can't we
Yeah.
have fun? It's one of the
Yeah.
reasons I bring creativity into some of our, like, we did our yearly planning with creativity. We
Yeah.
painted, right? We painted it. And those sort of things are really, I think, important for,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's funny, it's interesting because like, all the things that I feel like came very naturally to me as a child, like creativity being one of them, are things that in adulthood, like I have found it very hard to connect with, because they're all the things that I was that I was shamed for, that I was told I needed to get rid of, that like and especially as an adult, like, oh gosh, the word practical, I want to burn that word to the ground. Like, I mean, that was always like, that's not practical, Becky. You have to think of something practical. You're an adult now. You have to be practical. And it's like, no, like, I don't want to. Like, I actually, like, one, this is like totally sidebar, but there was this like vintage market day or whatever, like where I live when I first moved here. And I went to it, and there were these like glasses. Like, I needed glassware for my apartment. I didn't have any glasses, and they were these like goblet type glasses, and I looked at them and I fell in love with them instantly. And then in the back of my mind, I heard the voice, but they're not practical. And I instantly took out my credit card and I was like, we're buying them, because like, screw that. We're not doing this anymore. Like, you love them, just get them. But it's like, it's just little things like that, being able to notice that voice that
Mm,
is, you know, that is harping on whatever it is that you want to do for yourself, or that would bring you a little bit of joy. Like, it's like, and then just squashing that, and be like, no, we're doing things differently now. Like,
mm,
and I really think too, like, another thing that's kind of been a big thing for me is like redefining words. Like, I think that's really important, because we all have like the vision that, like, success, like, that's a hot button one, where it's like, it's drilled into us what success looks like, as like a societal like definition of success, whatever that looks like. But if that's not your, like, because that's what I chased for a long time, was that, kind of the should, this is what you should be doing, and this is what you're supposed to want in order to be happy, feel happy and successful and whatever. And I chased all of that, and I never felt more miserable in my life, and it wasn't until like I really started looking into and redefining what success actually meant to me, how that felt for me, not how I was told it was supposed to look. So I think that's really important, is also like just being discerning and redefining words for yourself, especially the triggering words, and that's something you brought up at the top too, with like crazy. Like, let's look at this differently, and is this a word that I actually want to use? Because guess what, you can get rid of the word altogether, but you can also redefine it to make it fit more into your standard or whatever, not just some box. Just because Webster's dictionary defines it this way doesn't mean that you have to define it that way.
That's a really good point, actually. And it's interesting because you think about certain minorities that take back words, and different yeah, I think as a lesbian, dyke is one of those words that I can use, but if somebody
Mm.
else uses it,
Yeah, yeah,
is not allowed, which is so funny. But yes, these derogatory terms that we then take back. So as someone who has been labeled as,
mm-hmm.
mentally ill my whole life, is it okay for me to use the word crazy in a different definition, in just a different way? That's it. Yeah, that's another one of those things that we're conditioned, right? Like,
Yeah,
this is the meaning because somebody told us it's the meaning. This is the meaning of a success because someone told us it was. And yet, how many people are dying trying to reach that? They're miserable when they get there. They're no happier. And it's
yeah,
like, that's not, maybe that's not what you really want, but you don't know what you want because you've never asked yourself, because you're so busy chasing what you've been told to chase. So
yeah.
what do you want? I'm asking all of you, what do you want? Go
Seriously,
after that.
it is such an important question. And I mean, another thing is like, we're conditioned to stay busy, like, if it isn't, you know, TV, it's social media, it's like advertising, it's, like, all these different things, again, all these external things that just keep that, like, that hamster on the wheel in our brain just ever running, so that like we don't stop and, just like say, hey, wait a minute, like, I've said, like, there's power in the pause, so like just sitting in like just some silence and just allowing, like, and I know that that can be like really scary, especially if you're not used to doing it, whatever. But like, it's so powerful and impactful, and like silence isn't silent. Like, but you need like that's the stuff that you need to hear and you need to pay attention to because like, your body is always talking to you, your mind is always talking to you, your emotions are always talking to you. They're always telling you something, but like, most of us are, no, 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 I don't have time for that. No, 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 yeah, I'll deal with that later, or like whatever. I can't face that or whatever. And I look at it kind of like maybe like the Wizard of Oz or something, like the man behind the curtain. I mean, that's what
Mm.
our emotions are. Like the smoke and the big scary face and the deep booming voice or whatever. But like when you pull back that curtain, it's like a tiny little old man that like, what I mean? He's like pulling all the levers. It's like, it's not really that scary. Like when you really get down into it, it only like becomes scary because we're feeding it the the patterns, the beliefs, those old stories. And so it's like you really have to go in there and like, what are you feeding your mind? Are you feeding it nourishing good things, or are you feeding it like, the crap? And that's not to say like only think positive. Like I don't like the whole like positive vibes only or positive thoughts only. Like I don't live by that standard at all because like we should be feeling our feelings and process, but the key is processing them, like
Hmm.
feeling them and then processing them and then letting them go. Like they don't just disappear, they don't just dissipate, they don't just go away. Like they will stay in there and they will just keep growing. And 99.9% of the time, they're going to come out and like when you don't want them to, like at the worst possible moment. So it's like, you basically like if you don't schedule time to deal with them, they'll schedule their own time and it's going to be when you don't want them to.
Hmm. And that's why we have so many illnesses. People get ill because they keep stuffing this down. There's only so much space down there, you know.
For real.
Eventually,
Yeah.
you're gonna just you need to deal with it, or you're going to explode at the wrong person, or you're going to end up in a deep depression, or your anxiety is going to be crippling, whatever it is, because you're not dealing with them. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, really, that's where I kind of started with like everything that I do now was with my depression, specifically because I was, my whole life the message was that this was a bad thing, this was embarrassing, this was like something that you could not let anybody know about because, it was a terrible, awful thing. And
Something
you're
to
gonna
be embarrassed about.
yes, you're gonna be labeled, this is shameful, like all this stuff, so I did what I was taught to do. I ignored it, I suppressed it, I pretended like I felt like if I just pretended hard enough that this didn't exist, that it would just go away. And I mean, that got me in a lot more trouble than it helped me, so I that's kind of like where I started was like, maybe that's not the way. You know what I mean? It's like kind of like
Hmm.
if it's not working, like do something different. You know what I mean? So it was kind of like this light bulb moment of like, you know what? I've been doing that for whatever it was at that time, like 15 years, and it hasn't been working. I've been suicidal multiple times now, been in the hospital for it. Like, I mean, it's not working.
Hmm.
So what are we going to do differently? And it was like, okay, well, if what I was doing before was denying it and pretending like it didn't exist, well, then we have to acknowledge it and we have to like listen to it and we have to like, and that was like, so I started like forming a relationship like with my depression. And, and that was really like where it kind of started because it was like, oh, wait a second, like, my depression was like just this big ball of like a lot of different like emotions and experiences and things that had happened that, again, like I didn't deal with until it snowballed into this like giant, I called it like a monster. And then I started making it into like a cute like Muppet monster,
Hmm.
so like morphing it. So because like at first it was like this big scary monster. That's my depression. And it's like, oh gosh, how do I deal with that? So I was like, well, I have to shift my perspective. Like I have to shift how I look at it then. So I was like, all right, let's make it like a cute little furry monster. And then like I have some empathy for it and like compassion for it because it's this cute little thing and it's not trying to be a menace. It's just I've created that monster, you know? So that was
Yeah.
just like really, but again, like it was a fun way to kind of deal with something that like, did not feel fun at the time.
No, no, absolutely. And I love that. I love that. The monster and the monster in the closet, really, because, you weren't ever allowed to share it and, just suck it up and go on. And why do you think our suicide rate is so high? Because people are taught to suck it up and move on. Nobody
Yeah,
wants to
get
hear
over
about it.
it.
Nobody until
Get
they're
over
gone.
it.
And then
You
all of
don't
a
even,
sudden yeah.
yeah, you don't even have anything to be depressed about, or like, what do you even have to be sad about? Or,
Mm.
just deal with it. Like,
It's a
yeah.
whole other conversation because yeah,
I know.
I could definitely do a rant on that one. Well, this has been amazing. And I didn't even, again, I apologize to anyone who's watching live that I didn't ask you to like say hello. I just jump right in and it's all the
I
things,
know. Like,
you
let's get
know.
to the good stuff.
So, hello everyone that's listening live. And if you're watching on the replay, yay. Um, Leave a comment if you have something you want to ask Becky, because I'm going to ask her one more question. And so if there's anything you want to ask her right now, pop that in the chat. And but afterwards, if you think of something you want to ask either one of us, that's fine too. I know how to get a hold of her,
Yes,
where to
I know
find
where to
her.
find me.
Yeah. um, so where can people find you? That's my question for you. Where can people find you?
Yeah, yeah, it's a good question because yeah, my social media game is a little lacking right now. But but I am on Facebook, and I'm also on Instagram. On Instagram, I'm the Awkward Alchemist, and Facebook, I'm just Becky Scheliga. But I think I do have two Facebooks because one is like the one I don't, one is the dead profile that's like all my family on that I don't really talk to, and the other one's like my real profile. So so
Find the
it's
one that's
probably,
active and
yeah,
friend her on there.
exactly, yes. Um, and yeah, and then I have other things in the work that I'm like working on. I do want to start like a YouTube channel, but I'm not quite there yet. But you know, got fun things in the works. So yeah,
Yeah,
find
so
me, and
definitely connect. And,
yeah,
she's going to be around as well. So, if you
yeah.
need to check back here or, through us. But absolutely, I don't see any questions at this point, but yeah, I really appreciate. Is there any final thoughts before we go today? Any final thoughts?
Um, I mean, well, have fun. Like, make it make whatever you're doing fun, because I mean, if it's not fun, why are we doing it? And I think that things that even aren't traditionally fun, you can find a way to make it fun. It's just about being creative, and that's, but like, to me, that is part of the fun, is like problem solving how I can make this fun. Even though it's something that's not traditionally fun. But yeah, I mean, I would say get to know yourself, get to know what you really want, and go after it, because life is too short and there is no point in spending it being miserable.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. You know, no, we won't even go there. Yes. Just do one fun thing. If you can't do the big scary thing of, making a change in your life, then just do one fun thing and we'll go with that. But thank you, Becky.
Yes,
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much. Yeah. And thank you everyone for being here, for listening. And if you're a woman interested in aligning your heart-centered business with your ethics, values, and life goals, join our aligned business building mastermind. We have accountability, like-minded women who become your business colleagues to share in the journey with, resources and trainings, and we do all sorts of fun things as well. You can get 90% off your first 30 days. For the cost of a latte, you can begin to align your business. The link will be below, and you can use coupon code aligned90. So thank you, and we will see you next time on the Aligned Ambitions Show.